Erica from BiblioCommons, and I'm here with my colleague Karen, who's in Toronto. And I'm also here with an amazing panel of RA experts. It's sort of a little dream team today, so I'm super excited. Before I introduce all of our panelists, let's just do a little bit of housekeeping. So this is a GoToWebinar format, which means everyone is in listen-only mode, just so we don't hear a bunch of sort of background noise from all the attendees. And so if you want to add in a comment, we'll have a long section for Q&A at the end, so you can ask all of our great Reader's Advisory gurus any questions you have. So you'll just type in your questions, and then we'll read them off. But in the meantime, if you could just raise your hand, so there's like a little hand icon to make sure that you guys can hear us okay. And I'm checking, I see the hands going up. Okay, fantastic. So we will get started. Karen, could you browse to the next slide so we can see all of our Reader's Advisory doctors? Fantastic. Here's our RA bunch today. And I have to say that Stephanie Chase, who many of you guys probably know, she's the director of Hillsborough Library now. She's been with Multnomah and Seattle in the past, worked at BiblioCommons for a year. She is here in spirit. Of course, she's a super busy lady, and we had a bit of a scheduling conflict, so it's thanks to her in many ways that we're even having this today. And so we will feel Stephanie's spirit of RA goodness throughout our presentation. So, in terms of the RA bunch that we have today for the presentations, and they're each going to talk about their favorite BiblioCommons RA tool, and then we'll open it up for questions. First, we have Melissa Andrews here as the Collection Development Manager from Boston Public Library. Then Allison Kastner from the Reader's Advisory Librarian at Multnomah County. Allison was sort of the, well, I assume Allison was the brainchild behind the My Librarian program, and she'll talk more about that too. And then we have Polly Ken, the Reader's Advisory Coordinator, or sorry, Reader's Services Coordinator from Lawrence Public. Robin Nesbitt, the branch manager, one of the branch managers at Columbus Metropolitan. Katie Stover, Director of Reader Services at Kansas City Public, and Greg Windsor, the Reader's Advisory Reference Librarian at Johnson County Library. So amazing. You guys have all agreed to do this today. So please ask them lots of great questions, and we will kick it off with Melissa. So I'm going to give Melissa, so here we see Melissa Andrews, again from Boston Public, and her favorite RA tool, but we're going to go ahead and give Melissa the presenter so that she can take over the screen. Just a second. Okay, here we go. Great. The floor is yours. Oh, sorry. Melissa, can you hear us?
Oh, no.
Oh, sorry. I stayed on mute. So my name is Melissa. I'm the Collection Development Manager, and I also manage the Reader Services Department at our main branch in Copley Square. So having a Reader Services Department for the a department that focuses only on Reader's Advisory for the BPL is relatively new for us. It was a department that was created in conjunction with a renovation of our main branch, which opened up this past July. A large focus of that renovation was to develop a physical space in our library for patrons to discuss books, both with staff members and with other patrons. So of course, with a new department, which has a new focus on Reader's Advisory, a lot of staff were really nervous about how do I find the perfect book for the patron that's standing in front of me. But we also had this new department that had lots of off-desk time to develop and work on RA stuff. So that was a huge asset for us. So one of the very first things that we asked staff to focus on was to create lists to help develop really the Reader's Advisory skills. So obviously lists are really, the reason that we love lists are a really low pressure way for staff to develop Reader's Advisory skills without having a patron standing in front of them with a ticking clock. Building lists and writing annotations are a really great way to learn about the books you haven't read and to think about all the similarities and differences in books and why you may or may not want to recommend them to patrons. When staff are building lists, they're using Novelists and Goodreads and other BiblioCommons libraries, so they're really becoming experts at using multiple RA resources. I think lists are a really, really great way to share staff knowledge, and it's an easy way to capitalize on, you know, your coworkers' knowledge when they're on vacation or at a desk, since they're so easy to search and find. And I think they're also just a really great way to, they're a great tool to share with patrons when you're stumped, since you have this list that's been created by a colleague. There's an air of a personalized list that's been vetted by your colleagues, so you know it's something that you can really capitalize on. We have a really, really great team working in our reader services department, where I think are really enthusiastic and spend a lot of time thinking about and having conversations about what makes a good list and what makes a good annotation and how can we make lists that are appealing to patrons. So I really just want to show a few lists that I'm really proud of, that staff has spent a lot of time thinking about and working on, that do a few things that are worth pointing out. So the first one is this list, Boston Public Library Thrillers, the Ultimate Page Turners. So obviously this is a list that's super timely right now. We're always being asked to read alike to Gone Girl. What I really like about the list this list are all of the annotations. So rather than just summarizing the list, the staff member who made this list really wrote hooks for each of the titles on the list. So Ghostly Secrets, Dark Choices, The Unbreakable Bond Between a Mother and a Daughter, Maybe Too Unbreakable. I think like this would be a super easy list to share with the patron that's standing in front of you. The hook is right there. Every time I read the books on this list, like a chill goes down my spine and I want to read all of them. The next list I wanted to show you is a list from our personalized reading recommendation service. So obviously, when we're building a new department, we spend a lot of time looking at what other libraries are doing and trying to steal and copy all of the good ideas. So one of the first things we did was develop our own personalized reading recommendation form, which we call Shelf Service. So I think when we looked at a lot of the lists that other BiblioCommons libraries are making, some of the most engaging and interesting lists to read are the lists that were made for individual patrons. I think very few people read only one type of book, so writing for an individual makes lists much more nuanced. Patrons have a few different access points to connect with the list on the topic, and I think just in general, these are some of the most interesting books that have really nuanced and interesting choices. And I think knowing that a book is for an individual, and like a real person, makes the book just seem much more appealing. And the last list I really wanted to share was a list that our communications department made this past Thanksgiving. So they surveyed about 7 staff members throughout the system and asked them to share a book that they were grateful for. And they posted all of these individual entries on social media the week before Thanksgiving and then compiled them into a list. But what I think is really nice about this list is it's sort of a new approach on the list. It highlights staff members throughout the system who aren't necessarily Reader's Advisory librarians. And I think that by showcasing individuals as opposed to books, this list really shows the importance of reading and how an individual book can change a person's life even in a small way. So I think every time I see this list, it just makes me feel good inside.
Oh, I love that. I think it's such a clever way of featuring staff as well as sort of seasonally interesting lists. That's a really good one. Great. Okay, so if you guys have any questions for Melissa, feel free to post them in. Oh my goodness, there's already a bunch of questions on different things, so I'm going to get back to that in just a second. Let's go ahead and turn it over to Allison, and all of our presenters are staying with us, so we'll be able to ask them questions at the end. So I'm going to go over to, actually, Karen, can you show your slide just for a second so we can introduce Allison? There we go. Reader Services Librarian at Multnomah County, and Allison's favorite BiblioCommons RA tool are the lists, but also tagging. So she has a lot of great examples, and I'm going to make Allison the presenter. There we go.
Hi, everyone. Okay. Yeah, I have a few things. I think we'll probably be emphasizing some of the same great tools among ourselves, but I love tagging, and it's a really great choice for more esoteric books and topics that might not show up in subject heading or keywords. And I am trying to seed this particular subgenre, and you can help me. I would love it if you would get on board with the subgenre Epiphany Fic. And my description of Epiphany fiction is books about characters who are either stuck or in some kind of difficulty, and then they're forced to go on a journey, either internal or external, and sometimes both, which leads them to a realization about themselves and their place in the world. So I'm sure you can think of a lot of them, but we've got, all of the Frederick Bachman titles, Man Called Uwe, Britt Marie was here, Alice Hoffman's latest, Faithful, is a great example of a Epiphany fic about a young woman who is kind of destroyed by circumstance and finds her way back into the land of the living. Heroes of the Frontier is a great kind of journey up to Alaska for a woman who's trying to kind of save her mind. Counting by Sevens is a great teen epiphany fic, Storied Life of A.J. Fickrey, Snow Child. So you kind of get the idea. Major Pettigrew. So I would invite you to use the tag Epiphany Fic and help me promulgate this tag. So that sort of thing is helpful in finding particular titles. And let me just see if I can find my the next tag that we've used. We get readers' advisory questions where it's a very sort of nuanced question. There are lots of levels to it. This was a reader's advisory question from a patron who loves beautiful language in her books, and she in particular wanted to discover novels written by poets because she felt that they had a unique perspective. And I think I kind of agree with that. It's a little bit hard to find, so we created a tag, Poets as Novelists, and you can see we've been tagging different versions of things, but there's Leonard Cohen, Michael Ondaatje, this Hausfrau was written by a poet, Leaving a Atoka Station. So that's been really helpful too, and it's also helpful because we make our personalized list for the person, direct them to that list, but we can also say, and we've created this tag, so keep an eye out for more content being added to that tag so that the question continues on. It's not sort of a closed question. And then inviting the patron themselves to add their own books to that tag is very helpful and kind of builds the quality of the catalog and the richness of the catalog. So that's a great tag that we've been using. We also very recently, last year, started the Library Writers Project, which is our effort to uncover local content by inviting writers to submit works of fiction for review by library staff. And this is all done through the Smashword platform, and they're all ebooks. And those best titles are then added to our Overdrive site and featured there. It's been a really eye-opening project in terms of illustrating how important the library is as a tastemaker. I think, we hear that we're trusted advisors, but maybe we don't always have evidence of that or data that backs it up. But we had 144 submissions last year, and we chose 33 of those submissions to be featured on Overdrive. And they are circulating like mad just from us pointing, bringing them to attention. So, for instance, one of the titles, The Gifts We Keep, circulated more than All the Light We Cannot See in ebook once it was featured. So, yeah, we have some influence there. And the BiblioCommons tools have really allowed us to elevate our library's writers project by using tags and ratings. And I just want to scroll down to one here. The one that I mentioned. Well, here's Dyed in the Wool, which is a mystery title. Now you can see that a lot of these titles don't have beautiful covers or any cover at all. Maybe the Syndetics, which we subscribe to for bringing in covers, doesn't give us anything. So being able to rate and comment and review is very helpful on these titles, and it just helps us share these books with the local community. And then they have been really excited about reading them and sharing them as well. Here's The Gifts We Keep, the one I was talking about. And then, of course, using similar titles is very helpful too, because these are all authors who, I mean, this book was not read except by, I think, maybe the author's family and friends until we started promoting it. So if we can use similar titles, Benediction, Empire Falls, The Sunlit Night, that is helpful in helping people find that. Yeah, so it's been very helpful for Library Writers Project. Earlier, My Librarian was mentioned. It really was a team effort. I'm not sure. I'm it's not my brainchild per se. A bunch of people worked on it. And all of these people, our wonderful team, are willing to share themselves and their reading interests. So hats off to them. They really are a great group of people. I just wanted to show you, for instance, Laura B here is one of our people who is now posting both in Spanish and in English, which is great. You can see her blog posts on the side. We've got a lot of video that we're working on, something that we're trying to get better at. And then we, of course, use very extensively reading lists. So here's her Where to Get Started with Carlos Fuentes list. And we make a lot of lists. I mean, really, we've made thousands of lists. Not only the My Librarian team, but staff in general. And that has been really excellent for building the content on these pages. However, we're now getting to the point where we think we don't need to create a list for everything that comes up, because chances are either we have created a list or another library, a reputable source, has created the list. So lists have been very helpful, and we use other people's lists all the time. So just in terms of finding other people's lists and not reinventing the wheel, I recently had a question. We were doing a gift book campaign on Facebook, and the person asked for a good gift for a young boy who's really into the color pink and dancing. I searched everywhere for picture books about boys who like pink. There are not hardly any. I really had a hard time finding anything that didn't have sort of a subtext about the boy's identity. It was just about a boy liking pink. And I'm sure you've had the same situation in the past. So then recently I found this Picture Books for Boy, Getting Grief for Liking Pink from Seattle Public Library. I wish I had seen it a little earlier. But those kind of lists and being able to search other people's lists has been really helpful. Also, we're looking often for books as teaching tools. So we get questions through teachers or parents looking for books that illustrate a closely defined subject. And for instance, recently we got a question from someone looking for books on social justice for very young kids, grades K through 2, and being able to search and find that our own school corps, which is our team of librarians that serve our school districts, they had already created basically a study guide and a list. That was really helpful. And right away I knew it was going to be a reliable and vetted list. So that was great. And also handy, what I noticed, I don't know if you use this in the advanced search. Let's see if I can get over. My little screen is covering my advanced search. I'm just going to tell you about it because I don't want to risk losing my screen. But in the advanced search, you can now search for Lexile level ranges, which is great, especially good for people who are adult readers just learning how to read in English, and you can limit the Lexile level, but also limit to adult books, and vice versa for kids, younger kids who are reading up and want to read challenging books that aren't that sophisticated in subject matter. And so you can figure out this is a good challenging read without anything too mature in it, by limiting to juvenile. So that's great. And just to close, I would show you our Best Books app. Shamelessly, we stole the code from NPR. Well, they invited people to steal the code, so we're not shameless. But this has been fun and really relies on BiblioCommons tools to make it look good. So, you know, we can narrow to different books here, so that's the comics and graphic novels. I could narrow again to diverse voices. Then I can click onto the title and get the little blurb from staff. These are all staff nominated titles and things that they loved. And then I can click right on the cover in order to see that item in the catalog and be able to place it on hold. And then, of course, the community activity and the subject headings and novelist recommendations are all great. So that's been a really great tool in order to make that Best Books tool work very well. And I think that's all I have. Thank you.
Wonderful. So, Allison, this is Erica. When you guys are inviting the community to share recommendations that you might purchase through Overdrive, about how many of those are you guys getting on a monthly basis?
Well, it's a sort of a one-time project, so we invite people to start submitting their work. This is the Library Writers Project you're talking about, yes?
Yep.
Yeah, so we invite people to start submitting their work in October, early fall basically, and then we're closing the submissions December 15th. And then our staff readers will have to go through each one of those titles. We'll read a portion of it, and the ones that we think are good get pushed up to the next level where we'll be reading the full title.
Great. Well, I was just going to mention that another feature, and it's a little more technical. It's not like you can just do it with the basic tools, like the tech services folks would have to get involved because it involves cataloging. But for any titles that you want to feature in your catalog but that don't have cover art from Syndetics or Content Cafe or whatever service people use, as long as you have a cover, you know, so if the authors are contacting you directly, I assume you could do that. As long as you have a graphic of the cover, you can upload it yourself and then link it in the 856 field. And we have documentation on that, so that all of those titles could have a nice cover art, you know, associated with them, which makes it even more appealing.
Yeah, that's great. I started looking into that for this year, but it was a little late, so I will definitely talk to the catalogers and see if they can make that work for us.
Great. Yeah, I know Austin Public Library, so of course everyone knows about like South by Southwest, and so a couple years ago Austin Public did a nice online display about local musicians, so not just the folks coming in for South by Southwest, but great local Austin musicians, and they didn't have a lot of cover art, so they worked with the local department of, they actually have like a department of local music in Austin, which is amazing, but to get that cover art so they could share that, you know, in a more visually appealing way. So I just wanted to make sure everyone knows that's an option, because it's a little hidden and you have to work with the catalogers to make it happen, but I think it's worth it.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. You guys are always doing such awesome things. Okay,
thanks.
So Great. Okay, so we've heard from Allison, and again, we have lots of options for questions. I'm just going to check. Earlier, I glanced in and saw a lot of questions, but they're mostly technical issues, and those have all been resolved now. So let's go ahead and move on to our next presenter, who is Polly Ken. There we go. There's the fabulous Polly, the Reader Services Coordinator from Lawrence Public, Kansas, and she cannot pick just one RA tool, so we'll just leave it to her to talk about this. But I think also, just for everyone who's listening in, I think lots of times I hear from people who want to build readers advisory teams, or people maybe who are in smaller libraries, they think, oh, well, we can't really do it because we don't have the kind of staff that like Multnomah or a Seattle or a Boston might have. And I would say you do, because Polly has made it happen in Lawrence Public, which is a relatively tiny library compared to some of our other libraries. They're about 100,000 service population, and they've done an amazing job. And I have to say that also Lawrence Public was my first library as a baby, so I have very strong, warm feelings toward Polly and her team. So we'll turn it over to Polly.
Thank you so much. You're right. We are a small library, and I was very, let me see if I can show my screen before I start talking. Okay, there we go. We were very inspired by the My Librarian program at Multnomah, and when I had the chance to start from the ground up in our department, we started the book squad early in 2015. And so we were lucky to have BiblioCommons come in at the same time. We couldn't afford the whole BiblioCommons enchilada, but there are a lot of things that we can do actually just in our WordPress website that we can share from BiblioCommons. This is our page just on our website, and you can see Book Squad. We can personalize ourselves, and then we can link from our BiblioCommons page, our personal page, on the bottom, and it will have books that we have currently, books that we're currently reading on our shelves. So there's a way to integrate BiblioCommons just into your WordPress website, actually. I was saying, I really love and cannot pick just one tool. For example, something we do as a team, we sort of have an editorial kind of calendar of doing so many reviews and so many lists per week or per month to keep everything fresh. So, for example, here's one that we did. One of our staff members did for Destiny of the Republic. This book came out in 2011, and it now has 5 holds on it because someone from our staff did a great review for it. And that's actually a really fun thing to do with your staff. We have sort of mostly friendly competitions to see who can get the most likes on a backlist book. We're a little cutthroat about it sometimes, but it's really fun to do, and it gets people excited about doing reviews. Another thing we do, obviously, is use lists, and we use them for a number of things. We use the lists to make our displays, and now the lists can go up to 100, so that's really great when we're making a display. We use a list for our for programming, and then just general really fun lists. So here's one that we did as just reader services staff. We have a genre book club, and so we have a little blurb about our genre book club, and then we have the books that people attending our club can choose from. So that's been really helpful because it helps with our programming as well as just fun lists. We also to personalize ourselves again, as we do with the Book Squad, we are using the profiles as a way to do that. You might be able to see Meredith, one of our staff members, did the rating scale, and she used all sports or hockey metaphors. um, as her rating scale, because she really she was really into hockey, and that, let people kind of know who she is. So that's another cool way to sort of merge our book squad personality with BiblioCommons using the profile page. We have a blog, so we write on the blog. We do twice a week, and we can integrate the books from the catalog into our blog, and then we can integrate the blog into the catalog, as you know. So that's a really great way to sort of cross those streams. And then another thing that we do, and other people do this too, I heard people talking about it, we do form-based readers advisory, and so we just use the personal recommendation to send these to people. And that's been really great. It's been a good thing, and we can. That's another thing that we do just through our personal staff accounts instead of a general account, just so people can get to know us more. That's all I have. Open to questions.
Great. And how many people do you guys have on your book squad, Polly?
Right now, I think we've got 7 on our book squad right now. We've had somebody have to drop out for a little bit. So primarily, it is all the reader services staff, and then I have one person who migrated over from our staff to info services, which is our reference department. And my plan is to get a couple people from other departments to participate as well.
Great. I love how you guys have the follow me on the website, as well as if I click on your profile, I can follow you. And this is actually a question I would have for anyone. But do you guys also put like your username on any business cards, or do you guys have other ways that you encourage folks to follow you?
Well, we have special book squad business cards, but we actually we don't have our username on those. But I think that's actually a great idea for when we do a reprint, is to put our BiblioCommons usernames on there. We just have right now we just have our personal emails, and we encourage people. We have our business cards out next to our pictures out on the stacks, and so then when we're walking around with people, we might write our recommendations on the back of our business cards and hand that to them, and then they can email us personally.
Nice. Yeah, actually, so BiblioCommons is going through a rebranding right now, and so one of the things I want to do on our business cards is have our usernames for BiblioCore. So yeah, I think, and there was also a question from one of the attendees asking if we could get the usernames of each one of the panelists so that we can follow you guys through BiblioCore. So we'll round that up and send it out as part of the notes from the webinar. We do have a few questions which I think are directed at Polly, but anyone could weigh in too. So one question is, one thing our staff has suggested is having a repository of sorts so that staff can easily find all of the lists that other staff at our library have created on their individual cards. Has anyone else created a repository of sorts like this for staff, and how? And before I open it up to Polly or anyone else who wants to answer it, I know this is something that Ian Lowe, our Director of Product at BiblioCommons, and our UX lead, has tried to think about. So it's definitely on his list. But let's see what other people are doing with the tools that we have now.
Yeah, actually, we have a main book squad list, and I'm probably not going to be able to find it now that I'm here broadcasting to everybody. But we just, anytime we create a list, so we've got Book Squad, and then underneath Book Squad, we have Kimberly's lists, Eli's list. So each member of the Book Squad has their own link that will then take you to all of their lists. That's how we've managed that.
Ah, nice. And then one of the comments, you can't see this, Polly, so I have to share the comment to that was genius. So one more question. What does the form-based Reader's Advisory personal recommendation look like on both the patron and the staff side? So I assume you guys have some kind of a form that people submit for personal recommendations?
Yeah, so I think we pretty much just ganked it exactly from Seattle. I'm not entirely sure, but we use a very simple form, and that's a Google form, and so then that comes into us, and we just sort of, anyone on the book squad takes a look at that and just snags them, and we try to turn them back around in 4 days, like about 4 days. So this is what it looks on my side. Let me be not logged in. Well, actually, what I should do is grab the permalink, and then let's see if it will. That's what it looks like when it goes to the patron. So it's a little sexier than what you see on this.
Right.
So
Okay.
that's how we, and we just usually, I don't know, maybe my staff does something a little different, but I always just put the date on there. I try not to make it so that it's personalized in any way, and so that, so it's private.
Right. Great. Okay, well, I'm sure we'll have more questions. Let's go ahead and going to switch over for a second. So our next speaker will be Robin Nesbitt from Columbus Metropolitan Library. And here's Robin, and she's going to talk about While You Wait, as well as some other tools. So Robin, I'm going to go ahead and give you the screen. Here we go. Great. Okay, can you hear us, Robin?
All right. Yeah.
Awesome.
All right. Everybody see my screen?
There we go.
Everybody see it? All right, great. Well, thank you. Thanks for having me here. Love to chat about books and talk about BiblioCommons. It's been a big help in our library, I know, helping folks find some great stuff to read. My favorite tool is While You Wait, because there's nothing worse than getting excited about a book and you come in and you're ready to read it and there's a holds list. So you're like, oh, sorry. So the While You Wait is a great way to try to get something else into their hands while they've got a reserve on it. So one of the popular books right now is that new book by Megan Kelly, Settle for More. So when you put that into the catalog, you can see the While You Wait tab below here, and this is awesome, so that you can point this out to a customer and say, all right, look, I know we've got to put a hold on this for you, but look, we can click on that, and it will find other recommendations that are actually available. And so I think this is a really great way to be able to kind of say, okay, yeah, I couldn't help you today. And, we're really in that society of, man, I want something now, I can't wait. And I think, well, I might be able to, introduce you to something else that you didn't even know, was something similar to what that you wanted to read. What I like about it is it does, Settle for More is a big one. We've got the Magnolia story, which is another bestseller, which is a hot one. We can't keep it on the shelves here in Columbus, Ohio. As you can see, I've got 266 holds on 130 copies. So when I pull this up, it's like, all right, well, let's put you on something else for a while. The nice thing about this tag that I like is it's not just like, so those were 2 nonfiction bestsellers, but it also works on older titles. So No Man's Land by Graham Greene, who would have thunk it, right? An older title, but lo and behold, all of our copies are in use, so who knows why? Perhaps it's a sign, or all of a sudden there's a mad rush for Graham Greene, but it does work for older titles too, so that's really nice as well. So that if somebody comes in and says, well, I'd really like to read that, that's great, but hey, maybe we could get you Amnesia by Peter Carey. Or, ooh, look at that, Decoded, novel by Ma Jin. So you're helping to move some of your backlist, which is great. The other nice thing about this is it works on graphic novels. I mean, it works on everything, but that's kind of cool. The graphic novels are hot right now, I'm sure, for all of us. Klaus is a really cool one. If you haven't heard about this graphic novel, it's about, you can see, a very manly-looking Santa Claus who's out fighting for toys and stuff like that. So, oh, sorry, there's no recommendations. That's a bummer. But, if there were other things like this, this is a fairly unique graphic novel, so that may be why there's not other recommendations. But I wanted to point out that it works for older titles. It works for new nonfiction. I've got a newer fiction novel here. I'll put that in. Do Not Say We Have Nothing by Madeline Tien. Again, you can see we click that while you wait, and boom, there's some more titles. And what's lovely, it shows you, there's several copies available. So, and our holds list, or our turnaround time, is fairly quick here in Columbus, so we can get things to you in a few days. So I can, put somebody on the list, but then say, yep, if you just wait a couple days, and we'll have something else in your hands while you're, while you're waiting. So this, to me, is a really nice tool. Especially in this day and age, like I said, when people want it now, or I'll just run to the bookstore, or I'll just get it on ebooks. Like, well, here, we can get this for you, and then let's get you something else. So this is a great tool that I would recommend for people to use if they haven't discovered it yet. So that's mine's quick, but I really like that. That's a great little tool. So thanks.
That's awesome. Yeah, and I think it's a good example that, like, lots of times Reader's Advisory doesn't mean that you have to spend a lot of time as a staff member, developing lists. Like, there's a lot of good built-in tools.
Right.
And one thing that's coming soon is the ability to, once we have the read-alike lists, so as you guys probably all realize that you can create a list, but to make it, there's no way to link it to, like, every other, read-alike list for Do Not Say We Have Nothing. For example. So the ability to create a read-alike list and have them all linked together is something that's coming soon. We've been talking about it for years, but it is something that's coming eventually, and we will have the option to be able to link your While You Wait to your own read-alike list eventually. So those are coming soon, but in the meantime, or even in the future, it's totally good to just link them in through Novelist or whatever content sort of supplier your third-party options are. So thanks so much. I do have another question. I think this one is actually for probably, but really it'd probably be good for everyone to weigh in if you have this service. So one question is, how many requests are libraries receiving for personalized lists? So I assume that is really going to vary. But to our panelists, like, how many requests do you guys get, sort of average a weekly basis?
This is Katie, and today I received 5 over the weekend, and last week I had 17 by Tuesday, and we did a promotion on Sunday morning, Sunday afternoon, and by Tuesday morning I had 17 requests for personalized reading lists.
This is Greg from the Johnson County Library. Similarly to Katie, depends on when you advertise it, but normally I get about 1 or 2 a day, just to kind of ebbs and flows. But that's a pretty at least one a day is a pretty good average for me.
This is Melissa. So we've really just started trying to promote our personalized reading recommendation, and we actually put a link to that service on our BiblioCommons Discovery page. And since we did that, we've been getting a few a day. We've had 34 so far in December.
Yeah, this is Allison, and I would agree with everyone else. It kind of ebbs and flows depending on how you promote it. When it gets promoted on the homepage, we'll get several a day, perhaps. We are taking a lot of our Reader's Advisory out into social media channels. So I don't know if you guys saw, we did the tattoo campaign, A Book for Your Tattoo, and that was really fantastic. I think we got, over the course of maybe 3 weeks, we got 258 questions through Twitter and 157 through Facebook. So that's been a really great way to do Reader's Advisory, sort of outside of the forum channel.
This is Polly. I probably average about 1 a day as well, and I'll say, we did a soft launch, and we did put it in our summer reading catalogs, but we've really not heavily promoted, just because we don't really have the capacity. If we got 5 asks a day, we'd be toast. So we just light on the promotion side so that we can handle the requests.
This is Katie again, and I don't want to talk about promotion because this is brand new service for Kansas City Public Library. So what we're learning from last week and this week is that it's a service that people like. I'm very happy that they also open our emails on Sunday afternoons, and this is telling me how much. But what I'm also about to learn in the next couple of weeks is how much my staff can devote to responding to those queries. I love that Allison said her turnaround is 4 days, and I just went, oh my God, Allison, how do you do that?
That's Polly.
Polly, your turnaround is 4 days. It's amazing. So I don't know how we're going to do that. I have a small team, and we're about to figure that out. When we first launched this service, it went really well, and now comes the part where we figure out the workflow in the real world. We thought we had it figured out in the testing world, but now we'll see how it really works. So we're going to watch how we promote now and where we promote, because I have to take into account who can do what when.
Yeah, I can always tell when a promotion for library land is really successful when I start getting people who are not in the library world sending me, hey, did you see this? And I had a lot of people sharing the Multnomah, recommendations based on your tattoo who are not even library users. So, and I'm in Kansas City, not in Portland. So it's always amazing when those really clever promotions bubble up. But you do have to be careful what you wish for, because then, of course, everyone's going to flood you with awesome requests. So it goes both ways. It's really good. So many cool ideas. Okay, so let's go ahead. So Karen, can you flip to Katie's slide? So thank you so much, Robin. And if you guys have other questions for Robin, we can get to those as well. So here is Katie Stover, the Director of Reader Services. We are so excited that Kansas City Public is about to go live with BiblioCommons because, of course, Katie has always been such a great leader in RA, and her favorite tool that she wanted to talk about is tags. And so I'm actually going to take the screen so that I can scoot over to Kansas City example and take it away, Ms. Stover.
Thank you, Erica. I found a couple of other tags I'm going to ask you to look up really quickly as we go along.
Great.
But I picked tags because I knew that everyone else would talk about lists and while you wait and the search features, and I want to talk about using tags as a library that's bringing BiblioCommons to our patrons and staff in a very new capacity. When you say we're going to launch, I'm told this week we might be launching. So I have been using tags to teach staff the terminology associated with Reader's Advisory, with helping patrons while they're at the front desk. It's going to be a great way for the frontline staff to show their knowledge of a record and their knowledge of books to the patrons, because they'll also be doing a lot of on-site instruction for our patrons, not just teaching them how to use lists and how to create their accounts, but tags are a really quick way for them to go right down to the bottom of a record and show a patron, this is a good way to figure out what this book is about. And one of the things I like about using tags when I teach the staff how to get comfortable with our new web catalog is I teach them to use the adjectives in tags that they use when they talk to me about books, and to just populate those records as much as possible with the tags, those adjectives, those lovely phrases that they use when they talk to their family, their friends, students, their coworkers, me, about what they like, about what they're reading. My feeling is that if I can get them to put all that vocabulary in the tags, one, it makes the catalog much richer, but two, they can go back to those tags at a later date, and I can use those tags then for helping them come up with creative names for the lists that we then teach them how to build. So if they can start to put together some really interesting terms from the list. And right before the webinar started, I tossed one out to Erica, science noir, and she has that up for you all to take a look at. And there's some really interesting things on this list. You can see fiction by Blade Runner, but I'm also hoping to get our readers who like nonfiction, science nonfiction, to add nonfiction to that. In light of the passing of John Glenn, there's some darker NASA nonfiction that we can include on a science noir list. So we tag these books with science noir for people that are looking for serious, maybe some suspenseful, maybe some atmospheric science books. They get that noir feeling, that dark, adventurous, dangerous feeling, but we can add some nonfiction to that as well with just science. So I didn't want to call it science fiction noir, and I didn't invent science noir. I just saw that term and thought, wow, this is great. I'm also using the tag feature to teach my staff about how they talk about humor, because everybody has a sense of humor, but it's really hard to describe what your sense of humor is like. So there's a difference between silly and witty and sardonic. And Erica, I'm going to ask you to type in sardonic into the tag field. Because to the best of my knowledge, sardonic is not one of those accepted cataloging terms. But I am talking more and more with coworkers who want sardonic reads, whether it's fiction or nonfiction. And I was thrilled to see Catch-22 at the top, so yay, we get to push this classic. But then you scroll down a little bit and you see the Stormfront, and yeah, you know what? The Dresden Files does have a sardonic sense of humor. And Desperate Characters, which is a book I wasn't familiar with, but now I'll take a look at it because this tag has been assigned to Desperate Characters. I love that Ghost World also turned up, and Not Much Fun, The Lost Poems of Dorothy Parker. What a great way to turn someone who's a fan of the Dresden Files onto Dorothy Parker. And, you know, I don't think that would be a really tough leap for fans of Jim Butcher's books, because Dorothy Parker does have the same twisted, witty sense of humor that Harry Dresden has. I recently tagged a book with sardonic, and I don't see it on that list yet. I'm sure I'll see it in the next 24 hours, called Shooters and Chasers by Lenny Kleinfeld. And I've been promoting this book a lot for people that really do want that snarky, witty sense of humor. And sardonic and snarky are, I guess those are the people I'm hanging out with right now. But it's a really great way for me to train the staff in how to tell the difference between a book's humor. So you might have someone who wants something cozy and witty. They don't necessarily want sardonic and snarky and in your face. I'm also liking using tags for how to describe language, such as, and I'm using the terms lush and elegant, and that helps me find a better level of reading material for those readers who want to be challenged in their language. I did a search just now while we were just tooling around on the web catalog, because I can have a lot of fun playing around with the web catalog, on languid, which I didn't find that as a tag. So I'm going to start using it on books where I don't want to use the term slow-paced, because that just doesn't sound good. But I have readers that don't want ricochet pacing. They don't want to get their pacemakers moving, maybe. But languid is a wonderful word to use to describe a book with a slower pace, very likely some more lush, elegant language, character-driven, and languid doesn't mean lazy, and it doesn't mean slow as in plodding. It just means you're going to be absorbed a little bit more, possibly in the story, in the lives of the characters, maybe feel a stronger sense of place. So lush is wonderful for both of these books, Cafe Society and Tea Planter's Life. But I'm going to go back, and I think I might even, after I tag a few books language so folks know what they're getting into, I might start to put together a list of languid reads. What else did I want to say about tags? Oh, yes. What I like about tags is that when I do a search, I get all sorts of interesting things. I typed in swoon-worthy with a hyphen and then swoon-worthy without and got a really, really interesting results. And I like that the punctuation does not matter. When I type in a tag, I think that that's important for patrons. They may or may not use the punctuation. I don't know. I am a good speller, so I'm not quite certain what happens with tags that are typos. And I think I'm going to let Erica talk about that one when I wrap up, because Maxine will also tell you that I had a lot of questions about typos. I don't like them. And BiblioCommons does not want to hire me to go on a mission to find all the typos in BiblioCommons.
Well, maybe
but I might. But what's really, take a look really quickly at this list, swoon-worthy. Now, that's a tag that someone put on these books, Outlander and Eleanor and Park. There's probably a really good list somebody could also build for swoon-worthy right now. It's also funny to see the adjectives that other readers will assign to a book. I'm not really sure that I would assign swoon-worthy to Glory and Death, but I would go and take a look at that record now and try to understand, well, what is it now about that book that someone finds swoon-worthy? So I'm going to stop right there and let Erica talk about typos and tags if she needs to, because we need to make time for Greg.
Yep, so we don't have a way to address typos and tags, and there's not a sort of a spell check for the tags. So I think that's something we would have to have some kind of a, I don't know, a note to the person. So it's interesting because tags aren't really associated with a person's profile as obviously as other content is that they add. So that's definitely something to consider. But I do think tags are so smart to add in interesting ways. And one difference, and you guys probably all know this, but for all the attendees, maybe some of which might be new to BiblioCommons, one big difference between adding a tag versus adding a list is when you tag it and then you search for that tag, and of course I come up here and indicate I want to search for the tag. When I do that, I still have all my facets available. So one common question we'll get for a list, for example, is people will say, oh, can I limit this list by what's available? And it's like, no, you can't, because that's not how it's set up. But if you, for example, sent out this swoon-worthy tag to your colleagues and then said, okay, and you just go over to your available now and say, okay, I'm going to go to the Plaza branch for this particular title, I see all the swoon-worthy titles that are available at the Plaza branch right now on the shelf. So that's one big reason to use tags over lists or use them sort of concurrently. So thank you so much, Katie. And let's go ahead, and I'm going to switch over just for a second. Change over just so we can introduce Mr. Windsor.
Hello, everyone.
And great. Okay, so I'm pulling it. Okay, here we have Greg Windsor, reference librarian and research advisory at Johnson County Library. And I love that his favorite BiblioCommons tool is other librarians, because so much to me of the sort of value of being a BiblioCommons sort of subscriber is the ability to hear from what other librarians are recommending and being part of that kind of club. So I'm going to turn it over to Greg and give him the controls.
Hello, everyone. Okay. Again, my name is Greg, and I am right next door to Katie Stover here in the Kansas City area. I'm just over on the Kansas side. I'm the Reader's Advisory Librarian here. And I'm going to whip through some of my stuff here super quick, and I really want to build on some of the things that other folks talked about. On our website, Johnson County jocolibrary.org, we have kind of a Reader's Advisory section. It's called We Recommend. And we can hardwire in some of the BiblioCommons lists that we do. We do a featured list that we kind of feature on there with the slider. And also, we've asked all of our staff to come up with recommended books in certain genres, kind of like talking about those lists earlier. And what we've done is kind of accordion style. So we have them broken down into categories. Each of these kind of genres will click and then spin off into a BiblioCommons list that someone on the floor who maybe isn't familiar with dystopian fiction but still wants to help their patron have as a resource at their disposal here, because not everyone's going to be an expert in every single genre, so this kind of helps them and gives them support. Another thing that I like about BiblioCommons is that it does, kind of Polly touched on this, it does kind of personalize things. And whenever here looking at my profile, I can kind of personalize my profile, and actually because of kind of I could list my areas of interest, and like a rating scale, I just happened to be feeling it one day and did my my scale on the Star Wars movies. So Wrath of Khan is a 5-star, Star Trek Nemesis is a 1.5 stars, and just to kind of just give you a little hint of personality. And also I love this areas of interest, because whenever somebody comes into the library and asks for recommendations of a genre that you don't necessarily know, you usually know somebody else at that branch who's an expert that you can call on. But how can we replicate that from the online experience? If you have kind of a naming convention where everyone has, like in our library, it's JCL first name, last initial. If I know someone comes up and asks me about Christian fiction, I may not know that, but I know that JCL Margaret O, who works in Cirque, she's a great Christian fiction fan. I can go look up her profile and look and see what she's reading, and then use that as part of my recommendation process. Another thing, super fast, people were asking about the personalized reading list. Johnson County Library has a form-based RA that we get. I take those and I convert those into a Google document that everybody can kind of have access with, where I have, the details description that people have put in. This is what I want, and then anybody, because it's a Google Doc, I could have several people contribute it at the same time. People, staff across the system can build title recommendations, and then I turn around and put them on a BiblioCommons list and then send them out to the patron. One of the few flaws of BiblioCommons is that if you have a group staff account, only one person can be logged in at a time. So if you're looking for any sort of group cohesion, you really need to have that one standalone person that can kind of do that. And Google Docs is a way to kind of get around that and get back to it. Also, another thing about personalized reading lists that I love, what we did is to kind of market personalized reading lists. We made personalized reading lists for fictional characters that were quite popular, and we put them out in social media, and people loved them. We did a personalized reading list for Batman, which was a lot of fun. We also did a personalized reading list for Snape from the Harry Potter series. We also did one for Katniss Everdeen from the Hunger Games series. The princesses from Frozen, Frank Underwood from the House of Cards show on Netflix. Just have an opportunity to have fun with it and show some personality, show some humor. Building content like this will make your social media folks gush over you. This is something that you can easily put in a Twitter post or a social network feed and get it out there and get some responses back instantly. It's a lot of fun. Also, talking about that personalized touch a little bit, I always like to, whenever I'm creating lists, instead of just putting, historical fiction or crime dramas, I like to add a hook, something that kind of grabs your interest. So I'll do something funny like Stranger Book Titles Ever, or whenever the week that Brad and Angela divorced, I did a novels about divorce book list, kind of like however, whenever a big current event happens, you'll run out and put a display together. Like when Prince died, we did a display of all book covers with purple titles, or purple covers. And so the same thing, you can do that with a BiblioCommons list. Again, fire it out on social media, and something is quick and responsive and is a lot of fun. And please, Melissa earlier said that stealing is a important part of librarianship. As you go through our presentations and look at what other librarians are doing, please, please, please steal from us so you can kind of build your own ideas and kind of spin off. And these ideas that we put out, you guys can spin out in new and fun directions to make things easy for your patrons. And I think that's about it.
Okay, awesome. So we do have a few other questions. I just want to ask these, and feel free, everybody, to share your questions for Greg or any of our other panelists. One question, do any of the libraries spend time creating forthcoming titles lists to showcase titles on order or being published in the next month? And do they create those manually or through a catalog search somehow? And do they create any corresponding print lists for patrons with a forthcoming list or other upcoming book lists?
This is Robin. We actually do that at Columbus Metro. I have my selectors send me titles every month that they're excited about, and so we have under our Explore tab forthcoming titles that we put together.
Great. And I know lots of libraries also promote library reads, and you can also search for library reads as an award in the catalog as well.
Yep, that's a great list too. Thanks for mentioning that.
Yeah.
Yay, library reads.
Since there's 3 or 4 of us on the committee, so we appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, we at GCL have.
Go ahead.
No,
go ahead, Greg. Sorry.
Go ahead, Robin. No, I was going to say that we, at GCL, we do have a pull-out of new titles that are just ordered from our, but I don't know how it all works, and it just seems sometimes to be a mishmash of adult and kid stuff. It just whatever is, our ordering person is ordering that day will pop up. I don't know if there's a way to kind of narrow it down, but it is out there. It is something that you can get.
I believe that we are making a list of, this is Polly, sorry, we're making a list of anticipated 2017 books. We don't do that super frequently because, like Greg mentioned, you can see what we're ordering if you look at the on order. But this is a way for us to sort of personalize upcoming books to our community too. So as we kind of know the the zeitgeist of our community, we can pick things out that are coming out that we think are a good fit.
This is Melissa. So we've tried making lists of sort of suggestions that come in through our suggested purchase form. I'm not sure if it's just us, but when we put an on-order item in a list and then the item comes in, the control number changes, and then that item is no longer listed as like an item that we have on the list. So it's a time-intensive kind of thing to keep up because we're having to refresh the list a lot.
And this is Allison, and we also do upcoming titles, and that list is made by our selectors actually, and it's a browsing list. But yeah, a lot of the same issues like finding the list and yeah, how it changes as things come in, but people do look at them.
Another question that came in, and I don't know if you guys want me to answer this or if you guys want to, but can you see how often these lists are viewed or clicked on? Is that something that you guys look for?
This is Robin from Columbus. In fact, it's funny you say that because I was just getting ready to talk to because this is all monitored through our marketing department, and they have Google Analytics. And so we had recently changed around how we're doing our Explore tab, and because we had moved to staff picks list, and we launched that about 3 or 4 months ago. So I was just getting ready to email that group and find out. But yeah, we can at least see click-throughs to the list. Now, what we can't tell exactly is how many then go on to reserve the books from that, at least with the tool that we're using. So, but we are trying to monitor because it's a lot of work to have staff do these lists, and so you want to make sure that the work you're putting into it, people are looking at it and using it and getting some value out of it. So.
Yeah, this is Greg from Johnson County. I'll kind of echo what Robin said. Our web content folks use the Google Analytics, and I get like and they'll shoot me. We recently kind of redesigned our We Recommend part of our website, and they actually can see, oh, 20 people clicked this BiblioCommons link this week, or something along those lines. And also, another thing about analytics is that you can, and I think that other folks can speak to this, but we actually try to heavily promote our internal usage, that our staff is contributing to BiblioCommons, doing lots of ratings, doing lots of annotations, and we actually will look up and see who's done the most stars, this week, who's starred the most books, or who's left the most comments, and I will kind of give them a little attaboy, kind of call them out and give them a little bit of love for contributing to the catalog, and that's something that you can do with your statistics.
So just as a quick example, so can you guys see my screen right now? It shows Calgary Public featured the staff list.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So this is just one quick example, and it's one thing to create the list, but we know that when lists get, sort of top billing, that it really does change the overall sort of circ around those titles. So this is just one quick example that I already have queued up, but that Calgary Public featured this list called Quit Your Day Job on their homepage when they first went live with their new website. And their website went live on like December 31st, 2014. So for all intents and purposes, it went live on January 1, 2015. And when you look at this list, it's really interesting to me because this is obviously an old slide, but like the annotations were hilarious. So here's the first title on here: Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. Annotation: After reading this book, I put my hand on a stove burner, went for a walk in the worst part of 10 at 3 a.m. and got mugged and ate a raw piece of chicken. In hindsight, I suggest reading the full book before taking the title's advice. So they're all like this. The annotations are hilarious. And when I first saw this as a sincere librarian, I was like, oh, well, these are hilarious annotations, but they don't make me want to read the book. Like, they're not really about the titles themselves. So Calgary, though, so here's the pub dates on these books that are on this list. These are obviously old titles. Again, this list went live basically on January 1, 2015. But they then went back and did some analysis. So there's no easy way to do this. Like, they have to compare some ILS records with other records. But here are the holds placed on these titles when this list goes live. So it's pretty amazing. So here's Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway, a pretty old book. And as you see, once it gets featured on the homepage, the total holds on this book spike. So it really shows how writing a really clever list and with funny annotations can really drive circulation, even when the annotations aren't even necessarily super related to the title. And I think that also is sort of a reminder to any other maybe overly sincere librarians like I can be sometimes, that it's also good not to take ourselves too seriously.
This is Allison.
Oh, yeah, go for it.
Yeah, so I was going to say, just in terms of that example, we do a guest reader feature where we feature someone known to the community, and they will be on the homepage, and their list of picks will be available to patrons. And we did Ursula Le Guin guest post. She's an amazing advocate of library service and has always loved Multnomah County libraries. And she chose, as an example, a Hoyt Axton CD. A bunch of you probably won't even know who Hoyt Axton is, but we didn't own a copy of it, so we purchased them for the collection, and the holds went just out of the atmosphere on the Hoyt Axton CD that so many people probably had never heard of. So yeah, I can attest to that kind of promotion being really helpful.
Nice. Ah, so cool. Okay, another question for you guys. What kind of tools do libraries use to manage their lists, like letting the web team know when the lists have been made, how frequently they will be updating, when they should stop being promoted, etc.? Good question.
This is Katie in Kansas City, and those are kinks we're still working out as we get used to using BiblioCommons. So that's why you're not hearing from me a whole lot about how do you do this that's established. Just last Friday, I was emailing with our social media manager, and I just happened to put together a list like seconds after the news came along that John Glenn had died, and she put that up right away, and she also put one up on cozy reads for cold winter days. And I talk with our social media manager about pushing out things that I see on the website, on the library site that deserve some social media love. But we have multiple people that handle that. I'd be interested in knowing how Greg gets his lists out at Johnson County. Who does that? Does he do that, or do you have someone else that does that, Greg?
No, I usually will create our staff will create our own, and we'll usually lob an email over to our social media person who's pretty responsive. We're lucky in that we have a social media person. Yeah, not every library does. So it is kind of a coordination thing within your department, just making sure whoever's in charge of that kind of thing is responsible, is fun. You don't want to flood and overload your patrons with all these cool things. So you do want to kind of maybe put some things in the hopper and then fire them out like once a week or so. But it's always pays to delight and amaze your patrons with the creative stuff that you come up with, especially on an ad hoc basis. Just something as cool as an idea as you get it, run with it. Be creative. BiblioCommons is a tool to allow you to kind of be creative and have fun with the process of kind of curating books. And that's kind of one of the best things about BiblioCommons is it is a tool that allows you to have fun with what you do and how you do it.
So I have a question from Melissa. With your newly renovated library, this is actually from me, but I'm just wondering, like, did you guys think about sort of that, are there sort of connections between the physical Reader's Advisory displays and the online Reader's Advisory displays, or are there any ways that, like, maybe the online Reader's Advisory displays help to, populate your physical displays, or how do you guys connect those two?
So right now, not really. I think that's something that we should work towards. A lot of the physical space is merchandised with books facing cover out, so everything's very browsable and patrons are sort of lingering. We are going to have a lot of opportunity to make digital signage, which we can, I think, then tie into BiblioCommons lists, and it'll pull our digital signage is designed to sort of pull a lot of the cover art and content from BiblioCommons to right into the interactive digital signs.
Nice. Yeah. And Lauren's, on the outside of the stacks, there's digital signs that really are just screens. They're touch screens, and this explore page is featured. So I think it really helps to get reviews, recently reviewed books or recently reviewed titles, and of course this is reviewed by your staff and your patrons, get those kind of promoted easily. I think it's pretty cool.
This is Katie at KCPL, and I have a evening weekend supervisor who loves building displays based on the funky lists she's seeing staff make on BiblioCommons. So Elizabeth's been doing that, and she's pretty active on social media. So after she builds a display, then she's great about taking a photo of it and tweeting the photo, Instagramming the photo. So she's always looking for inspiration for displays, and she's finding more and more on our web catalog page.
Nice. Yes, so many layers. So many different streams to get into.
Yes. Yes. She's waiting for me to finish a blog post now so that she can make a display, and then we can build the list in BiblioCommons.
This is Polly. We do that same thing, Katie. We just, no effort wasted. We want to make sure that everything we do ties in with other things that we do, and then we push it all out on a bunch of platforms.
Like Greg says, we should be stealing from each other and then recycling our stuff.
Also, we discovered that BiblioCommons lists are great ways to promote upcoming events. So instead of just posting the same thing you've done the last several weeks, oh, so-and-so is going to come to the library and talk about X, well, you make your librarians or your staff build an X reading list. So, build a BiblioCommons list around your event. So when people are coming to the event, they not only are they excited about whatever it is that you're doing, you tie other resources that your library has. And another great thing about BiblioCommons is that you don't have to stop with items in your catalog. You could also add outside links to your BiblioCommons lists, so you can really branch out. You can link to outside websites. You could link to databases that you have that your patrons may not know you have. You could link to Facebook and blog posts in your lists. So they are really a great way to kind of go beyond just putting up information and then hoping people show up, making it a little bit more fun and interactive, and showcasing other parts of your library.
So I'm just checking to see if we have any other questions. If you have any other questions, go ahead and text them in now. We have a few more minutes. While we're waiting on that, I had a question sort of specifically for Allison, but really anyone who has been working on kind of a library-wide RA team project. So Allison, now that you guys have had the My Librarian program for a few years, what would you say has really surprised you, and what, if anything, would you do differently, or are there specific sort of takeaways that you would definitely recommend to all other libraries?
What has surprised me? Yeah, it's been a couple of years, so the surprise may have dimmed a little bit. I guess I'd say that, how enthusiastic the response is when people get a personalized response back from someone that they've asked a question to. We have a document called Love Letters to My Librarian that is, I think, like 45 pages long now, of people just overwhelmed by how we get them and how we take the time to really think carefully about the question. And we do get, we get sort of the questions about Harry Potter, what's the next thing to read, or James Patterson, but we also get questions that are really, it's an honor that people are asking us the questions that are very personal. For instance, someone who had a friend in jail, and that person wanted to read books that was going to help them get through that time and think about the future and how they wanted to lead their life in the future. And just the fact that people ask you those kind of questions and are willing to share the personal details of their life, I think is such an honor. The second part of the question, what was it?
Oh, just if there's anything that you guys would do differently if you were going to start it all up again at a new library. If there's anything you would do differently, and if anything you would recommend to other libraries. And I love your example of the sort of personal. I know one person had told me that his most memorable RA moment was when someone came in and they had gone through a terrible personal experience. They haven't been able to read yet, and they want to know what they should start reading now. It's so much pressure, but also it's amazing that people come to libraries for such a personal request. So yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I think that vulnerability, that willingness to be in the moment with someone is really amazing, and it's probably the reason a lot of us do Reader's Advisory. So, if I could wave a magic wand, definitely there are technical issues with providing that online service, and people mostly choose to email us, even though we have the opportunity to Skype or chat, but we don't, our technology isn't necessarily there yet. We can't talk very well to people and, instantaneously, and also synchronously. If people ask us a question now and they want to chat, basically we're saying it through the form, well, when do you want to chat? Because here's when we're available. And, you know, to me, that's a bit of a barrier to service, but it's a technological challenge that we just haven't figured out yet.
If you don't mind me jumping in real quick on a somewhat related point, one of the things I wish I had done differently, or had I be able to do all over again, is the concept of editing. Whenever I first got BiblioCommons and I wanted to gush about the books that I read and liked, I would make these like several paragraph long reviews that really belonged more on a blog post than an annotation, because the web page will cut you off after about 3 or 4 lines, and then you have to do the little click more. Well, whenever a patron skimming your page looking for something to catch their eye, there's really no reason for them to hit that little read more unless there's like some overwhelming reason for them to. And I would kind of amuse myself by making all these grand, wonderful things about these books. And I learned over time to really edit and to make my sentences much more forceful and emotional and to the point. So an annotation in BiblioCommons is different than, like, say, a blog post, which is going to be different from like a New York Times, a review of a book. You really have to know your audience and know how much time your audience has to get that information about a book, and you only have a few seconds to get your point across and to sell that book. And so I really wish I could go back and edit some of those older things that I've put into the catalog. But it's something you learn over time.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. But you can still go back and edit them, Greg. We can get you a list.
I have, yes. You used to go around and show people my my review for the Martin, which was like 17 lines long, and I have it down to 4, so it's much more legible now.
Okay. Well, thank you a million times to everyone, all of our panelists. You guys are awesome, and I always have so many great ideas after hearing you guys talk. So thank you to all of our panelists. And we will make sure that when we send out the notes and the recording, today, of course, was recorded, when we send it out to all the folks who had signed up, we'll make sure we include your BiblioCommons username so folks can follow you. And we should all go and tag books with Languid and also Epiphany Fic. Great.
And Snarky.
Wonderful. Well,
Thank
thanks
you
so much, guys, and have a great week.
Thank you so much, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
What a delight.